He is going to be our special host for this panel. He is Mr. Jim Sorensen. And put your hands together for Mr. Neil Kaplan.
What is this? Why do they seem so far away from each other? What is this? It's like, oh, Jim! There we go.
We get to rearrange this stage however we want.
I'm so glad that it says my name there and just reminds me. It's like, oh, okay, good.
It's handy for me because then I don't have to check my notes. I'm like,
There
so,
you go.
Mr.
Kaplan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's right there. Seriously, let's give a really warm TF.Nation welcome to. It's really exciting for me to be up on stage with Optimus Prime. It's such.
I thought you were just excited to actually see that one of your Facebook friends is actually in the flesh in 3 dimensions. You know, it's nice to see you in depth and not just height and width. You know.
I'll be honest, I thought you were catfishing me.
Yeah. No.
He's the real deal.
Stop it.
It's really cool. I know there's some questions. We're going to throw the question open to you guys real soon, but there's a few that we always get, so I figured I'd ask them.
Okay.
So how did you get into voice acting?
I was a young, obnoxious child, like many of you, but I used to do voices, and I remember. There was a TV show when I was growing up, and it was called The Copycats, and it was basically impressionists, and it was sort of Saturday Night Live before Saturday Night Live existed, and I figured SNL's 50 years old, so you may have heard of it before. So they did sketches, but it was dependent upon the accuracy of their impressions, rather than makeup or costumes or anything like that. And they did this one sketch called Celebrity Sneezes. And there was one in particular that I remember, and it was silly. It was Richard Nixon. It was ha-ha-ha-choo! You know, it was silly, but I remember doing my own, and it was a really horrible Donald Duck. And I was doing it from the back of my throat, so it was like, you know, that. It was really not that bad. But my brothers being older brothers, they did their job, and they teased me mercilessly about it, and that's when, for somehow, so that was my first impression, and I went from there to listening to, and I know he's apologized to all of you more than once. But I remember doing Dick Van Dyke's really bad English dialect. On the street roads of London. Okay, Dick. And I just kind of went from there. And so I did impressions at the school talent show. And then I finally got up the nerve to audition for shows. And I found that everything that I was doing, musicals or straight plays, every character had a different voice. I would read through the script, and by the time I would get to the end of the script, the character had a voice that was different than mine. And so I was studying musical theater in New York City, and my aunt introduced me to a guy who was a disc jockey. And the disc jockey found out I was a stand-up comedian and impressionist, and he asked me to do some drop-ins for his show. And that was the first time I went into a booth and really recorded on a good microphone. I went, wait, no hecklers, no lines to memorize, I don't have to worry about shaving, I can wear whatever clothes I want. And for a freak like me, being able to play gigantic characters and characters, it was like, you know, being able to play them all. I mean, some of you may or may not have known, but I was working on a show called Digimon, when I got cast as Optimus Prime. No, Digimon, go ahead. There we go, alright. So, my British dialect got decidedly different better over the years, and I played Hawkmon. And please do not ask me how he became British because I don't remember. They don't know why.
But Hawkmon, you know, he sounded like this. And of course, when people found out that they were getting Optimus Prime played by Hawkmon, they were terrified. They thought they were going to have to live through an entire series hearing Autobots transform, run out!
So, you know, playing a character like that and saying, you know,
Hawkmon Digivolve to
Optimus Prime. I mean, you can't really do that so much on camera. I mean, sure, Alan Tudyk can, but that's about it. And so that was just ticked off all these boxes for me, and I got in the booth that one day, and it's just like, don't make me leave. You know, it was a little bit of that, and I had a friend who was in a revival on Broadway of Grease, and I saw her on tour, and then I went to go visit her while she was on Broadway, and I remember looking at her getting ready and going, oh, that's right, it's a job. She's going to do a hand jive tonight for the like 7,200th time and make it seem like the first. And I did a couple of movies, you know, as an extra, and like student films as a lead, and I just didn't love the process of filmmaking, of waiting around, of, okay, now we're going to do the scene again, but we're going to film from over your shoulder, you know, doing stuff like that, and it just didn't hold the interest for me that I'd rather be in a booth doing like 27 different versions of getting punched in the gut. You know, that to me is a lot more fun. So that's the long story of how I became a voice actor.
Oh, thanks, that's great. I love that. And the other question that inevitably comes up is, you know, I'm positive that some people in this audience, you know, would love to be a voice actor. What are the sort of early steps that one would take if one was interested?
You want to be born in the 1960s or the 1970s. See, I'm the downer. I'm the downer guy when it comes to, I want to be a voice actor, how do I do it? Because I will tell you, it's getting tougher by the day. People have asked me, what's the toughest part of the job? The toughest part of the job is finding the work. It's getting the work. The doing the work is the fun part. So these days, I tend to tell people things along the lines of, first of all, you want to be a voice actor, why should voice acting be the only art under the sun that's the only way you can do it is professional? If somebody wants to write, they just write. If somebody wants to paint, they go to the art store, they buy a canvas, they buy some paints and some brushes, and they paint. They don't sit there and go, I'm going to paint as soon as I get my gallery show. You know, it doesn't work like that. Plus, you know, in today's world, you have an advantage that we didn't have, you know, back when I had color in my hair. You have the internet. You can create, you can put it out there. You know, now instead of convincing Penguin Publishing to give you 3 inches of space on the shelf at Target, you can self-publish. You can find your own audience, and you can do that as a voice actor. And there are people out there that do these things. We used to call them old-time radio shows, but you know, I lost 2 of them. That's called being a bad panel. Bye, everybody. Anyway, I see these things. So anyway, there are people who do audio dramas, and it's a great use of the internet to get talent from all over the world and record something and put it out there. So if you want to be a voice actor, join one of those groups. If you want to be a voice actor, I always recommend, I did about a decade of teaching at the Braille Institute for the Blind in Los Angeles. And people who are dyslexic, people who have problems with their vision, people who are blind, can't always read every book that's out there. And so one of the things that you can do to kind of fill that need for voice acting is you find an organization in your neighborhood, in your community, that serves the blind and or dyslexic, and you read for them. So not only are you rehearsing your art, you're getting a chance to work on it and get better, but you're also doing something for somebody else. You know, and you start off and maybe you're reading math problems for kids in elementary school, and then before you know it, you've gotten enough experience, but now you're reading short stories. And in short stories, they're going to be characters, so you're playing characters. And then you read long-form books, and before you know it, you take little bits of each one, and you put them together, and you've got a demo. And then there's a little place, at least in the States, I don't know if they have it out here, but Audible.com has a division called ACX. And that's where people who self-publish go and find voice actors to read their books. And so instead of going to Hollywood and trying to compete with, you know, Scott Brick, you know who Scott is, or competing with Morgan Freeman, or competing with Robert Downey Jr. or Neil Kaplan, you're in a pond that is more suited for your place in voice acting. Now, one of the things that I tell people on a regular basis on social media is, because they'll say, I do voices, I want to be a voice actor, and I'll write to them, how long have you studied acting? I do voices, I want to be a voice actor. What do I need to know about acting? And I'll say, I don't know if you noticed, but voice acting is 2 words, and voice is only one of them. So you need to know how to act. And that's important. You know, I use shorthand. I talk about the voices that I do. I don't do voices. I play characters. Okay? So some of them I know really well, and I just reach into the shelf behind me, and I go ahead and I grab it, and there's Optimus Prime. And there's a shift in my energy. There's a shift in my delivery. There's a shift in who I am in the moment.
Versus body language.
Something like that. So I had a video that I put up on TikTok the other day of an interview I did, talking about another show I worked on called Naruto. Thank you. And Allison asked me about doing the voice, and I said, well, it's basically me with a change in attitude. And it was like people made comments, oh, you saw the character show up halfway through that sentence. And it's like, yeah, you did. And that's what I tell people. Don't buy into the lies of doing voices. Play characters. That's the most important thing I can tell people. You know?
Sounds, as a non-actor, it sounds really interesting to me. You know, the idea of the acting and the improv classes and whatnot. It's got to be.
Oh, you definitely need improv classes, because I'm doing a video game on Tuesday when I get back to New York, and I've never done these characters before. It's a production company that's used me before and kind of knows, oh, that'll be good with Neil. And so I go in, it's like, okay, what are we doing? Well, we're playing this character, and this character, and this character. Can you tell me about him? Sure. And I'll say, all right, how big is he? How small is he? How tall is he? How much does he weigh? Things like that. And then I just kind of reach over and grab a couple of vials off of the shelf and mix them together, and that's how the character's created. But if you're a newer actor, one of the best things you can do for yourself to help make that happen is to take improv classes. So you learn a little bit of how to get out of your own way, or how not to overthink, how not to go for the perfect joke, how to just be in the moment and play the scene, you know? So that's definitely improv, which I forgot to mention, so thanks, Jim. It's really a very important skill to at least work on, if not master.
Well, I can see it. I can see you using those skills on stage right now to stay engaged with the audience. And I think this is a good time to throw the questions to the audience.
That's if anybody has any
If anyone
questions.
has, otherwise I'm happy there.
Let's see a hand all the way to that.
All right, we have some
questions. He's out all the way over here. He had his hand so fast. There we go. Let's take care of that gentleman. Thank you.
Sorry to make you walk so far. Hi, good to have you, Neil. Just
Hey.
hey, nice to meet you. What's been your funniest moment in your voice acting career, like in the recording booth? Anything really funny happened that really stood out to you?
I'm sure many, there are just so many. I think about when I was doing Transformers, in between takes, a character was born.
That character was Optimus. So I'd sit there in between takes and Optimus transform! Roll out!
And I distinctly remember Steve Kramer like hitting the button and saying, "Put the moose away. Put the moose away." So, and the moose comes out every now and then. Like, I worked on a video game called Spider-Man 3. And in this game I played Kraven the Hunter, who is Russian, of course. And I played Kraven the Hunter. And I don't remember anything from the dialogue I did, but somebody on my TikTok reminded me I said this line because people have asked me, what are the lines you remember the most? It's like, I don't. I go in, it's on the page, I read it, I leave. Barely anything penetrates this thick skull. So, there are two lines I remember. One of them was from Spider-Man 3, and the line was, "I strike from the shadows." But I didn't remember that I did it as Kraven. So in my mind, I remembered, "I strike from the shadows." But I don't even remember it because of that. I remember because I looked at the line, and I literally said,
I strike from the shadows. Because I thought, that would be something, maybe Bullwinkle as a ninja might say. Ooh, I strike from the shadows.
So those are a couple of the funnier moments. Some funny moments I cannot say because there are children here.
Maybe in the bar after.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
But hopefully that answered your question a little bit. Hello.
How did you feel voicing Optimus Prime for the first time?
Good question.
How did I feel? Well, let's just say this. I didn't audition for Optimus Prime. I auditioned for Gascon, for Slapper, and for an Autobot called X-Brawn. X-Brawn was a southern SUV, and I figured he would kick up rocks under the undercarriage and have kind of a textured voice, and of course was going to be southern from the American South. So I had that, and then you kick up rocks under the undercarriage, and he sounds more like this. "Howdy, ma'am, my name is X-Brawn." And I'm walking out after reading those three characters, and I'll never forget being in the control room, or looking in the control room at the casting director, Jamie Simone from Studiopolis, and I look over his shoulder, and there's a picture of Optimus Prime on the freeze frame on the screen, and I can hear Peter Cullen's voice in my head. And I go, "Can I read for that?" And I'll never forget it, because Jamie looked me in the eye and goes, "Nah, we got plenty, don't worry about it, Neil." And so I left. So a couple weeks later, Jamie calls me and says, "Neil, can you do that thing you did minus the dialect?" And I said, "Wait, can I do a voice that I created minus a dialect that I overlaid on top?" "Yeah, I can. Why?" "Well, the producers think you sound like Optimus Prime. They want to go ahead and have you do the pilot. They don't have enough time to audition you. So my thoughts on doing Optimus Prime the first time was something akin to, ha! So there was that. Plus, the other thought that I had was, I'm not going to tell anyone. Because I have already worked for this man once, told everybody that the episode was coming, my character shows up, pulls off his mask, opens his mouth, and somebody else's voice came out. So I didn't want to tell people, "I'm Optimus Prime," and then have them tune in and it's Dan Reardon, or Peter says, "I need the cash. I'll go ahead and voice it for you." So I didn't want to tell anybody, so the other thought was, I gotta keep this to myself. Yes.
Hello. Hi. I know you've probably been asked this 1,000 times before today, but what are your thoughts on Robots in Disguise getting a recent resurgence of popularity thanks to the new toys and especially the new HasLab?
Well, look, my thoughts, and I haven't been asked that 1,000 times, so thank you. My thoughts are along the lines of, when I first started doing Optimus Prime, my life was filled with, "You're not Peter Cullen." It's like, yeah, I never said I was. And so I didn't enjoy disappointing people. Like, I would have people come up to me at conventions and bring an Optimus Prime toy, and I would literally not sign it. I would ask them first. I would say, now, you know that's not my version of Optimus Prime. I'm happy to sign it for you, but I understand if you'd rather not, because I'm a collector, and I know how I would feel, and I always want to present that to people. There was a shift a few years ago where people stopped caring, and it was like, yeah, but you're still a voice of Optimus Prime. I'm not. So would you sign it? And so feeling the appreciation has been wonderful. When the fans have gotten a taste of other people doing, playing the role, it's kind of like, oh, he wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought he was. Cool. And just every little bit of acceptance has been wonderful. Plus, since then, I've played other characters that have gotten some critical attention and love for the fans. And my stance has always been, I'm grateful that I played Optimus Prime, and if they want me to come back, the phone don't have to ring twice. All right? One time I'll pick it up and say, what time? Where do you want me? And I'll let you in on a little secret. I don't know if you know, but there's a place called Universal Studios. And they have this thing at Universal Studios Hollywood where you can meet Optimus Prime and Megatron. Well, I went to the auditions when they first auditioned for it, and walked in there like an arrogant little beep, and just didn't make a good impression. Because I walked in and basically said, so, which version of Optimus Prime do you want? Do you want mine, or do you want Peter's from the show, or do you want Peter's from the movie? Because it's like, Peter from the show is more like this. One shall stand, one shall fall. And then there's mine, which is a little bit more throaty and a little bit more chesty. And then there's Peter from the films, because he's aged a little bit and he's smoked for 40 years. Don't go, he's been smoking, not me. I'm not saying anything that isn't true. Holy mackerel. So it's like, the Peter from the movie is like, and then there was the cube. That sort of thing. So it's like, well, which one do you want? And they were like, oh, just talk already. And it was like, I knew I didn't get the job. So I auditioned and didn't even get a call back that first time. And it's like, okay, ego, back of the bus, back of the bus. And it was a reminder. And then I went for the second round of auditions they did a few years later. And that was interesting because I did get the call back. And so at one point they had us in a line of 10 different people reading a scene. And so, the first guy reads it, I am Optimus Prime. I am Optimus Prime. And then it gets to me. I am Optimus Prime. Once there was the cube. And like 4 guys to my left and 5 guys to my right went, oh, shoot. And the guy who was doing the casting looks at everybody, and he was a fan before he became a voice actor, and he went, yeah, he played him on TV, guys. And they all kind of, but it's like, as an actor, you want a day job. So it's like, if I'm going to do a day job, I may as well do that versus waiting tables. Didn't get it that time either. Third time I went, and it's like, okay, and they asked me, why do you want the job? And I said, because I live a few minutes away, and I'd like to have a day job. There's no actor on the planet who thinks they have too much money in the bank. There certainly is no voice actor who thinks that. So I love the job. And so I started, actually they hired me. And so I was the voice of Optimus Prime at Universal Studios Hollywood. And that was a joy. Because I'd sit there in the booth and I'd see on the cameras the kids, And when there was a kid who had a really great reaction, or an adult who had a really great reaction, I'd kind of sit there and go, well, they actually talked to Optimus Prime. You know, and it felt good, it felt really nice. I mean, as I've said a bunch of times, I can't fly, I'm not invulnerable, I'm not invisible, but being able to make people happy by talking is a pretty darn good superpower to have, you know? And to make people happy like that felt great. There were times I'd be walking out of the park and I'd see somebody who I talked to earlier, and I had to remember, this isn't a convention, they don't know it's me. So do not say hello to them, you know, and just kind of let them go. But it's been a wonderful journey, and I hope, my fingers are crossed, if I can play the role again, I would absolutely love to. But if not, I'm glad I did. That's what happens. One person asks a question, it's never on in 7 minutes.
Hey Neil.
Hello!
Can you tell us a little bit about your time working on Voltron Legendary Defender when you played Zarkon? Were you familiar with Voltron at that time?
I was familiar with its existence. I auditioned for it. I booked it. A lot of bigger names auditioned for it. Didn't get it. It was like a really cool moment for me. It was like... and I distinctly remember going to one of our first read-throughs and asking, should I watch the original show? And they went, no! No! Do not watch the original show. We don't want you to get any ideas from that show. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we love what you're doing. And we want you to do that. Now, the interesting thing was, just between you and me, one of my friends at the time was a voice actor by the name of Jack Angel, who was the voice of King Zarkon on the original show. One day I'm opening up my email and I see there's an email from Jack. And I open it up and I read it, and it's like, hello friends! As you know, in the 1980s, I played King Zarkon on Voltron. You may or may not know that they're actually doing it, and I don't know why I'm doing this, because the man obviously typed. Anyhow, and it says, they're doing a new Voltron, and I would love to come back as King Zarkon. Here's a link to the fan page, and you know, we want you to go ahead and sign and add your name to the list. And I'm like, I love you, Jack, but there ain't no way. Delete. And so I selfishly kept the role. I had such a great time in that room, because the huge difference, look, most of the stuff that I've done has been anime or video games or dubbing, where it's just us alone in the booth. And then when you do original animation like Voltron, you're in the room with the whole cast. So like, I'm in there with Cree Summer, who is one of the most amazing talents in voiceover. I'm there with Josh Keaton, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching him work, and this is a man who has played Spider-Man, Green Lantern, She-Ra, Hercules, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him and going, that's why, because he has the voice of a hero. He sounds like what a hero should sound like. And it was Tyler Bean, I mean, was so funny. And being a big Walking Dead fan and working with Steven Yeun, it was like, all right, spoil me. Tell me what's going on. You know, without spoiling Walking Dead, I gotta tell you, one of the weirdest things that can ever happen in your life is having somebody you become friends with have their eye get knocked out on television. Because you see that and you go, I know what he looks like in real life, and that's just, it was very disconcerting in a way that I've never had before. But Steven deserves all of the success he's been getting, all of the accolades he's been getting, wonderful human being and an even better actor. So that was just a great experience. There were other things that weren't so great, and I'm not going to talk about it because we're on camera. But those are private memories, and even the not so great memories, I'm glad I had them. I'm glad I was able to walk that path, you know. And one of the most interesting things was, there was an audition that came out for a video game and the reference it had, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll have a description of the character, a picture of the character, lines of dialogue, and they'll say, vocal reference, and they'll give you an actor, or they'll give you a character, and that's just what they had in mind sort of as they wrote it. Well, this game was called Destiny 2, and the reference was Emperor Zarkon from Voltron. So it's like the first time I was the reference, and I kind of went, okay, and I booked it. So that was pretty cool. But Zarkon was one of these really deep roles where I had to eat the microphone. But they were just, we saw the premiere at DreamWorks and seeing it up on the big screen. I was like, wow, you guys did a great job. I mean, the space battles in that show, I don't know if anything animated has ever come close to it. They were just amazing. Which, of course, one of the directors went on to make a couple of Spider-Verse movies, you know, so now you know where some of that great look is coming from, you know, but thank you for asking, I appreciate it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got time for one question.
Oh no, I'm talking too much. Can we do like at least 3 and I'll be really quick?
If very quickly, yes.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I might disappoint the Transformers fans a bit here. I'm going to be sad. This is Naruto related.
Okay.
Any specific standout moments from your time as Madara in Naruto?
The standout times from playing Madara on Naruto are right now. Right now, I tell you, because we go in, we read off a sheet, not a lot of things really stick. People, what was your favorite line to record? I don't remember. What was your favorite scene to work on? I don't know. So we did the show and 10 years passed, there's a lockdown around the world, and I swear 2/3 of the planet watched Naruto. And the love and appreciation that we get now is just mind-bending. And it's like telling a joke and waiting 12 years for the laughter. Yes, okay, I'm sorry.
When you were voicing Optimus Prime, was there a lot of comments from the studio about how they wanted it to sound, or were you able to create it?
Nope, it was pretty much, and here's the thing, if you go and you watch the show, this is what I want you to look for. There are 3 different things. 1, in the first few episodes, you will not hear Optimus Prime say roll out. We had done some episodes, I went to do my very first convention, and one of the questions was, and the whole convention fit in this room, by the way. And somebody asked, will we ever hear you say roll out? And this will tell you how much of a not Transformer fan I was. I said, is that important? And that's what the room did. And I said, I'll tell you this. It's dubbed, the character is a face mask. I will promise you that from this moment forward, you will hear Optimus Prime say roll out in every single episode. So if you don't hear it, early episode, do hear it, later episode. In that show, we had 2 different directors. We had Steve Kramer, who knew nothing about Transformers, and he would like add words, and he was all about a younger, more take charge Optimus Prime. Autobots, we'll meet at the space bridge, and from there, we'll go and take down Megatron and the Decepticons. The other director was Mike McConaughey, who you might know as Trax from G1. Since he knew Peter, he directed me to be more like Peter, so he would take words out, and he would slow it down, and it would be a lot more ponderous, a lot more of that John Wayne kind of energy, or I should say, Peter's older brother energy. So if you hear one episode, and they didn't even know this, so I did my very first Transformer convention, it was BotCon 2002, and somebody from the audience asked, why did you sound like this in some episodes and like this in other episodes? I said, well, he directed me like this, and he directed me like this. And they both leaned forward and said, what? Why didn't you tell us? And I'm like, because I thought my job was to do what you guys told me to do. I squeal a lot, people, if you can't help it. So, yeah, so that was the biggest notes that we got. I didn't get any, the only note I got was, you sound like Optimus Prime, you're hired. Oh, wait,
one last question.
Yes.
Hi there, it's great to meet you. What I want to ask is, Digimon Adventure 2 is a big part of my childhood. When you're voicing Hawkmon, do you have a favourite memory, like a favourite particular dialogue from that character? Or
I wish I could tell you that I did, my friend. You know what? The things that I remember are not from doing Hawkmon. They are from the job, because another thing that I used to do, for some strange reason, in between takes, I would do an actor's voice by the name of Ed Wynn. You might know Ed Wynn as the uncle from Mary Poppins. You know, I love to live. So I would do that in between takes. And when we were doing the movie, Jeff Nimoy gives me a line number. I go to it and the word is finished. And he goes, now. 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 Beep, beep, beep. Finished! That I remember. That and being the voice of .com. Believe it or not. But I mean, I love playing Hawkmon, but more stands out that the world went, oh no, Hawkmon's gonna play Optimus Prime. So yeah, it was a joy. It was a lot of fun, and I'm very glad I got the chance to come back and do it again for the newer movies. Everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming by today. Feel free to come to the table and ask me the questions. Feel free to come up to me in the hall and, you know, just make sure that you don't just shout the question at me. Tap me on the shoulder first and make sure I'm paying attention.
Buy him a drink in the bar, guys.
No, just ask me the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil.